I've got a problem. Had to use the snowplow recently. Haven't used it very much. I got to use it 3 times in the winter of 2024-25. And now winter of 2025-26. I've had it out a couple times. I started plowing the other day after we had a nice warm spell. We had a cold snap and we had a little bit of snow that I had to get cleared off. Blade froze, wouldn't go up, wouldn't go down, wouldn't pivot one way or the other. I've got to figure out what's wrong. So come on along as we diagnose the problem with this Meyer snowplow. It lives. The plow is working again, and it was after no small amount of trial and error trying to figure out what the problem was. I went down the wrong path on a couple of things because I didn't pay attention to a very, very obvious point on here that should have tipped me off right away where to start. So I fiddled around and I checked some common things. I checked some fluid, I checked some other solenoids, and partially that was due to looking at the error codes being flashed on the control module. There is a set of flashes you can get anywhere from single to double to triple and so on. And going by the guide on the back of the controller, it points you at certain things. And I was getting a flash that pointed me at one of the solenoids here, the solenoid for the up-down motion on the plow that controlled that. There are 3 identical solenoids on here. There's the right and left and the up and down and so forth. And when I fiddled with those, I kept getting different error flashes on the controller. That's what really confused me. But through all of this, I kept thinking the main power solenoid was always clicking on here, but the motor was not running. So finally, I forgot about all the rest of this and I headed in the direction of troubleshooting what might be wrong with that solenoid engaging, but nothing happening down here at the pump. And I'm going to show you on this video what it finally turned out to be. And it was very frustrating because it was the last thing I expected to see, considering that this plow had not gradually stopped moving. In that case, it might have been fluid or something, a plug filter, anything like that could cause it to slowly move and not move and be herky-jerky when it does move. But no, that wasn't the case. Dead stop, nothing worked. To me, that indicated a component failure of some kind. The motor died, the main solenoid died, but I never expected what I did finally end up having to replace on here that ended the operation of the plow so suddenly. So let's take a look at what I finally had to do to get this thing fixed. We've gone from 73 degrees a couple of days ago down into the 40s today with a snowstorm expected for starting tomorrow and going into the weekend. So that's just lovely, and I don't want to have to use the old tractor to plow snow if I don't have to. I did some diagnostics. I applied 12-volt power to the motor to make sure the motor works, because the motor won't activate if you've got a bad solenoid. That's what controls power going to the motor. So I just separately applied 12 volts. I stood off to one side to make sure something didn't swing and hit me, and the motor worked fine. And I just jolted it, and it did actually move the blade a little bit to the left. It's a good thing I was out of the way. Be very careful if you're testing something like that. The motor ran, so I know that's good. Well, there's really not much left other than this main solenoid that sends power from the battery to the motor to make that run. And then the negative comes from the motor back through the system and the control. And I seriously doubt there's anything wrong with the control, but there could be. The thing I need to eliminate is a problem with the solenoid. I've checked it, power coming from the battery. I've got battery voltage coming into the main lead, and it doesn't provide power out the other side until you engage it with the control, with the up or down or whatever direction you want to go. So I've got my expert diagnostic assistant here with me right now, and she is going to push a button and see if I get voltage out the other side. There should be 12 volts coming out of here going to the motor. So we're going to try that right now. Press the up button, please. Release. And as I suspected from listening to this before, the solenoid was clicking in and clicking out, and I got battery voltage out the other side. That means battery voltage is leaving this main solenoid down to the motor. We keep checking. Knowing that the main solenoid worked, I disconnected the main connector down here and checked the power at the two power connections, the positive and negative, and tried it again, and I have voltage coming to both of those connectors. That coming through when the solenoid is engaged has to put power through to that motor. So I've got to keep checking connections. It's quite possible in all the movement that somehow the connection got broken on this cable now feeding up to the motor. That would give me an immediate catastrophic failure if a wire broke in there with the movement of the plow. So we'll check that next. After no small amount of aggravation and troubleshooting in between cold snaps and another blizzard a week ago that dumped almost a foot of snow up here that I had to plow out with the tractor to start with, and I fiddled around, so I got to thinking maybe I have a problem with the solenoid. I took just a regular pair of jumper cables and I went from the main power solenoid, the positive on there, to the positive on the motor, because I know the motor had been working. And then I took the negative and I hooked it to the negative post on the motor and hooked it back to the negative ground on the battery. Tried it, and lo and behold, the plow worked. So I did some more troubleshooting, and I just ran it with the negative cable. Hooked the negative cable onto here, other end on the battery, and no positive from the solenoid, and sure enough the plow worked. So I took some zip ties and secured this all into place, and I was able to use the plow to finish cleaning up after that blizzard, able to control it that way. So now the question was that solenoid bad? Because my research showed that it can pull into place but yet not have enough power or the corrosion on the contacts prevent it from carrying the amperage load to that motor. I got a new main solenoid for the plow. It was $11 off of Amazon. Why not? Put it on. Well, that by itself didn't fix the problem. So I got a brand new cable. It was like $150 for a brand new plow side cable. Hooked that up. That's what I did today, and bingo, we've got a working plow. This cable right here. Now if I read the ground from here back to the motor, or I read it from the connection point on the truck back to the battery, the negative read good. But that was just using the meter. But when you hook this together, there was something wrong in this circuit where I wasn't getting a good negative ground, and that's where that ground cable helped out. This is the old plow side cable. This is the main connector that plugs into the truck side cable. It's a great big connector, a lot of pins in here for all the lights and right, left control, up and down, and then the two main power, the main power in the center, and at the bottom, the ground. I cleaned this thoroughly. I even took the brushes that you clean out the barrel on a gun with for about a .30 caliber. I got in here after I had cleaned it with contact cleaner and got all of the dielectric grease off from everything, scrubbed that out, made sure it was clean. And even with that, I could not get a good ground connection back. The frustrating thing was I shorted these two ends together, took them off the pump, and I read this with the ohm meter, and I had continuity. And then when I plugged this back into the power from the truck and turned it on, I could get voltage over here, and it would flow through here. But apparently there was just not enough contact left in here to provide the negative ground needed to make that pump operate. Very frustrating. Also came down here, and this is the truck side cable connector, and I cleaned the dielectric grease off the contacts in here. This is where all the pins are. It's sockets on the truck side. This is the new one right here. Cleaned that all up, and I got in here with a very mild emery cloth and made sure these two main posts were completely clean, good and shiny, that I had contact here. And everything else looked really good on this side of it. And when I read all of this with the meter, everything was good. And if we engage and turn power on, I had power flow through here, all 12 volts. So I had power, even though there was no visible damage to this cable. There was a little bit of wear on this outside sheathing on the old cable. I did not see any broken insulation on the wire. Nothing was kinked badly because this all sits in place and it's tie wrapped securely to this frame. I had no idea why I suddenly wouldn't have good flow, good negative ground back to the battery. I took a gamble and I decided I'm just going to buy a brand new cable and put it on, and that's what fixed it. Plugged her in, everything's working fine. So I'm going to get this all secured. That solves my problem. I've got a working plow. It took an awful long time to figure this out because the monitor lights were leading me in different directions, and looking at all the common failure things, which weren't all that expensive to replace, it still didn't do it. Real simple thing. Ground on this cable. I'm going to take one more precaution here so I don't have a problem next winter. You can buy a new end for the truck side cable as well. There's a spin-off collar here. Get a new end. This one, the cap happened to break off last year. So what I'm going to do for around $50, give or take, get a brand new cap and install that, and I will have brand new connections on both sides. That should prevent any problems going forward, at least for a few years. If you found this video interesting and gave you some kind of help, if you're having problems with your plow, well then please click like. Consider subscribing to my channel to see more videos when I work on other vehicles. I got a big vehicle restoration project coming up this year if I can get to it. Plus a few other things around the yard and some home repair stuff. So once again, thank you for watching. Enjoy your projects and take care.